Good day everyone! We are the Group 5 and today we are going to present to you our activities from activity number 2, 3, and 4. But before that, let me first introduce to you myself. I am ALIREH SERNA and I have here my group mates, Jobelyn Geroso, JENNYBELLE Romero, RHEJEN and JENNYBELLE RAVARRA.
Good day, everyone. I am Jeneline Romero, and I am honored to present to you our activity 2 in our field study 2, which is entitled Making an Online Learning or Virtual Learning Environment Safe and Conducive. And at the end of this activity, we, the FS student, must be able to achieve the following intended learning outcome, which are: first, to identify practical and feasible classroom routines and procedures in a remote learning. Second, to analyze and assess critical opportunity educational intervention in creating safe and conducive online learning. Third, to acquire higher concept of learning strategies in establishing own procedures. And fourth, to promote active participation of learners and teachers using modern technologies, even they are geographically remote. This activity have 4 parts, which are the observation, the analysis, create, reflection, and also included the evidences in creating this activity. The first part is the observation, wherein our task is to interview a professional teacher from a school with any online classes who is teaching any grade level. For this task, we had interviewed Miss Lucky May Ramos, a teacher from a private school that was teaching for 3 years. During the interview, we had asked her some questions about her online learning classes. The first questions that we had asked her was how she managed her online class. According to her, she managed her online class or her virtual class through a good communication toward her learners, especially they are very young. She always make herself to be friendly and equalize their energy as much as possible. And also, she was conducting a different activities to make their lesson or their discussion alive. And for the second question was about how she make her lesson accessible to all. And according to her, she connect her topics based on the real-life situation that is related to their experiences and let them share it during their discussion. The third question was about how she teach using a remote learning video calls in a remote teaching. She was using Zoom applications and also create games in a PowerPoint presentation, and also they are conducting a virtual quarantine games like Bring Me, Show Me Board, and other to feel them that they are in a real classroom. And the second part of this activity is the analysis, which is about the observation and the interview. From our observation on one of the online class at PSUACC, the online class was structured as like the other or the typical online class, wherein it starts with greetings, asking the condition of everyone, and a short review about the previous lesson. But in the class discussion, the students had to discuss or have a reporting about their lesson. The teacher just observed them and give additional information and feedbacks. The class ended peacefully. And according to the interview, the teacher said that she gave rules before they proceed in their online class. And the rules, it included that if they want to say something or to recite, they have to raise their hand or their virtual hand, then they are being recognized to answer. And as a student, are very responsive and active. And after the analysis was the questions based on our first task, and it had 3 questions. The first question was about what classroom routines and procedures that we observe in a remote learning, and how can we apply it to promote essential learning to minimize the gap experienced by the learners due to the pandemic. During the remote learning, we observe some classroom routines and procedures that can promote essential learning to minimize the gap experienced by the learners due to the pandemic. During this pandemic, everyone encountered a lot of challenges in many terms. From what we had observed, that one of the effective way that Mr. Salazar do to lessen the gap was every student was be able to be informed about the schedule of their subjects, which is one of the most important that the student must know or remember in order to not to be late. Second, he also provide every students a report which will make them to be responsible and will also enhance their speaking and critical thinking skill even they are in their homes. The second question was, does the teacher remind the learners on online etiquette and what responses that we generated from the learners? We had observed that the teachers remind the learners some of the online etiquettes. Perhaps we noticed that the students already know the proper manners during online class, such as they raise their virtual hand if they want to say something or they want to share their thoughts and ideas, or even to raise questions. They also put their microphone mute as much as possible in order to not to disturb the class. And we had also observed that the teachers reminds everyone to answer his questions when he asks more than once. But this is to make sure that everyone is listening, participating, and able to understand the lesson, and also a basis when they should also or they are going or already going to proceed to the next topic. The third question was if there a delight, full, and great effect to the learners if the teacher creates a safe and conducive learning environment during online class. And we had observed that there is a great effect on learners when the teachers create a safe and conducive learning. As we observe in the class, the teacher let the students report and share. They share about their topics. In that way, they will not be scared of sharing things that they have learned. After that, the teacher gives additional information about the topic, gives correction in a polite way, and acknowledge the students that they are reciting. Having a safe and conducive learning in a class is important in order for the learners to have the freedom to express themselves and help them to learn more in the class.
Hello everyone, I am Jobelyn Geroso, presented to you the part of Create, Analysis, Reflection, and Evidences. Now, let's start from Create. In this part, we construct our own set of rules and regulations that will make our virtual learning environment or atmosphere safe and conducive. So we, the FS students, construct 10 rules and regulations for our virtual learning environment. First, create a quiet and comfortable study space. Second, be prepared for our class, or before joining the class, make sure you are physically, mentally, and emotionally ready to learn new ideas and concepts. Third, utilize the mute and unmute button properly. Fourth, respect everyone, especially your teachers. Fifth, raise your hand virtually for permission to speak or say something. Sixth, observe silence during the class and avoid unnecessary noise and backgrounds that could disrupt the discussion. Seventh, wear decent clothes. If possible, wear your school uniforms. 8. Stay seated and present. 9. Encourage each other with appropriate response emojis. And lastly, no food during our online class. Regularly remind our students about the rules and regulations at the beginning of our class. because having a safe and conducive learning environment can translate it into a comfortable learning atmosphere wherein students feel at home. For the next part of the activity 2 is the reflection. The question is, as would be a millennial teacher, how can you make the environment safe and conducive to our learners? We, the FS students, answer this by giving a 5 steps on how we make our classroom environment and conducive to our learners. First, by knowing our students, getting to know our pupils is the most critical component of becoming a good teacher. Allowing time to interact with them, and most importantly, we listen to our students that allows to build those essential relationships. Second, we create a sense of belonging. It's also vital to foster a sense of community in our classroom. Allowing our pupils to express their emotions and form relationships with one another can create a community. Third, be vulnerable. In our classroom, being vulnerable can encourage deeper thought, improve relationships with our students, and generate more genuine replies. In addition, being vulnerable and truthful is one of the most effective ways for our future teacher to convey that lesson. Fourth, create a model with the right characteristics. A good student strives to improve his knowledge and has a strong desire to communicate. Demonstrate to our students how to act in a manner that is kind, honest, polite, obedient, calm, and patient. It may not always be simple, but demonstrating these qualities for our pupils teaches them the value of treating with others kindness. Lastly, smile, laugh, and love. Smiling, laughing, and loving your children is one of the simplest yet crucial methods to help them feel comfortable and secure in our classroom. Every time we talk into our classroom, greet them with a smile. Give hugs and lend our shoulder to cry when needed. In general, we, the FS students, face a lot of challenges. First, it is easy for us to find a professional teacher having an online class who is teaching from any grade level, but we struggled to communicate with them, which they didn't immediately respond to us because they are busy in their schools, like preparing for the grades of their students. Next, we actually found a professional teacher that we could interview, but she did not agree to observe her class and to take a documentation together with her students for the reasons of privacy. But we were still lucky because she agreed to interview her about how she managed her virtual classroom and what are the things she considered to make her online or virtual learning environment become safe and conducive. Then, since the professional teacher we spoke to did not agree with the observation, so we, again the FS students, looked again for another professional teachers that we could observe. But we were sad because we found nothing for the reasons that they are all busy for the school matters. So we decided to ask a help for our FS instructor, Mrs. Allen Grace Ugalde, to give us a class that we could observe. And we were still lucky because we've been able to observe a class of Mr. Ricardo Salazar, one of PSU ACC faculty. The only thing we've done to overcome this problem that we face in this activity is having a unity or working together. From finding a professional teacher that we could interview and observe in his class, we, the FS students, never give up and we work together until the end. Each of us has responsibility to answer every part of the activity assigned to us. Moreover, we, the FS students, learned that providing a safe and conducive learning environment for our students is one of the most important factors to our learning. A safe and conducive classroom environment is one in which students feel secure, safe, and ease. Children can work as a team, celebrate one another's accomplishments, and learn from their mistakes in a pleasant setting. It improves students' ability to study and productive in the sense of self-directed learning. We, the future teachers, must always remember that the classroom is a second home for our children. As a result, we should make every effort to make our kids as relaxed as possible. We should work to establish an environment that encourages the participation and learning, because a positive classroom environment improves attention, reduces anxiety, and promotes our students' emotional and behavioral regulation. In addition, we, the FS students, always say that nothing is easy and everything is hard before you achieve the success. Nothing is impossible for the person who believes everything is possible. For the last part of this activity is the evidences or the documentation. So here are the documentation during our observation for our online class from one of the PSU ACC faculty, Mr. Ricardo Salazar, in his Global Currents on World Literature class. During the observation, the students have a reporting about a literary pieces. As the students reporting, the teacher sometimes asks about the topic. He also gives some additional information from the topics. The online class was done and structured with the other typical online class. And also a documentation during our interview to Miss Lakmi. Aside on answering the given questions, she also shared some tips and evidences or experiences that she experienced in her teaching years. She also shared some photos together with her students showing how they active and responsive during their online class. As she shares her experiences, we, the FS students, observe how teacher Lucky was happy and cheerfully tell it. We learned and realized that even teaching is hard for others, but when you love and enjoy it, there is no hardship you felt, especially when you see your students learning and actively participate during your online class discussion. That would be all for the activity 2. Now let's proceed to the activity 3, presented by Ma'am JENNYBELLE RAVARRA and Ma'am RHEJEN RACRAQUIN.
Good day to everyone. I am RHEJEN and I am going to present to you the activity 3 of our field study 2 entitled Focusing on Creating My Classroom Remote Learning Management Plan. But before that, let me read to you the intended learning outcomes of the said activity. At the end of the activity, the FS student must be able to achieve the following intended learning outcomes. First is to describe the components of learning management plan. Second is to explain the importance of learning management plan. Third is to identify the best practices in creating effective classroom or remote learning management plan. And fourth, lastly, is to promote behavioral, social, and academic success in a structured environment that caters to tolerance, exemplary behavior, and learning. This activity is divided into 4 parts: observation, analysis, create, and reflection. Now I am going to present to you the first 2 summary of the parts of the activity. It is the observation and analysis. Now, in observation, we have interviewed Ma'am Lovelyn Ribadas, a 2 years grade 9 advisor of Colegio San Jose de Alaminos. She explained to us that classroom design may affect learning as much as we imagine. Having a well-designed classroom encourages learners to engage in different activities. It allows them to establish boundaries within the classroom. In designing the classroom, it is important to learn first the different needs of the students, since all of the learners have their own different learning style. Such as, first thing to do is to ensure safety for the students inside the classroom, such as making sure that their chairs are in good shape. Next is to arranging chairs in groups to encourage group learnings or socialization. Chair arrangement must also consider learners with physical disabilities, providing different reading corners accessible to all students for supplementary activities. And also, classroom needs to have enough
creative decoration. Now, while in rules and discipline, she said that she is very lenient and always reminding her students on her classroom rules, which is to respect others like their classmates or their teachers. And most effective way to show discipline to the students is to talk to them about what they have done wrong. Talking to them privately, explaining what they did wrong and helping them to change, because we actually did not know how each student cope up differently if we give them harsh punishment. And scheduling and organization. Ma'am Lavelin said that organizing her class schedule is usually her first task to do with the first week or for the week. She makes sure that all of her students understand the lessons before conducting the activities and performance tasks. Now, as per instructional technique, Ma'am Lavelin used some instructional strategies which she always uses on her online class. According to her, she used a flipped classroom. Before conducting online, she usually provides them readings about the lesson or an assignment before the lesson. Then, as she conducts their online class, everyone already have a background knowledge about the topic. That is the time for her to deepen their understanding about the lesson. In order to do that, they have to learn the significance of the topic in the real world and importance of the lesson. Now let us go to communication. She said that having a communication with students, you need to have authority to establish boundaries and respect within the classroom. Hence, you also need to be friendly and approachable in communicating with your students. The first question is, based on the result data of your interview, are you going to apply or adopt these best practices? And our answer is that, as the FS student conduct an interview to a teacher about the best practices of classroom management plan, we'd love to apply all her shared best practices. We will also create a classroom design that will make our students safe and very conducive for learning. Establish a strictly imposing rules and an effective way to discipline our future students. Intelligently provide a very interactive and useful instructional technique to ensure that the learner will actively participate and learn all the lesson. And to have an organized learning management plan. Lastly, to make an effective communication toward the students and the teachers. Now, the second question is there a meaningful effect of a well-planned classroom management in achieving a productive study environment? And our answer is that, in having a well-planned classroom management, students and teachers will actively engage a good teaching and learning relationship. Learners will be more comfortable to share their thoughts, ideas, and problems without thinking the possible feedback of their teachers. In this way, students will be actively share and learn without hesitations about the things that they are having a hard time to understand. Also, when learners are focused or didn't face any problems or confusion during the learning process, they will be motivated and actively participate to learn and to become productive learner. Another is when the teaching materials such as instructional techniques and have an organized learning plan, schedule, teachers will be spontaneously teaching and as well as learners to learn. Lastly, when there is a set rules and standards, teachers and learners will be peacefully having a learning environment. Now let us go to analysis. Let me read to you the first two questions. First, what is the set of ideals, beliefs, values, and goals on classroom or remote learning management plan? And our answer is that Having a well-designed classroom management plan means having a dedicated role and responsibility for the students and teachers. Teachers acts as the facilitator of the classroom, hence he or she manages the learning. On the other hand, students learn through the activities that is being facilitated by the teachers. Learning management plan is essential so that the students will learn on their own. Also, students may also learn how to work with their classmates, and to that, the teacher will be able to monitor the progress of every student effectively. Lastly, what set of criteria and/or standards you will set to judge the quality of the classroom or remote learning environment? Now, our FS students come up with 5 set of standards. The first one is to establish rules and regulations, effective learning instruction, impose standards of behavior, good learning relationship between students and teachers, and lastly is to collaboration and good communication of teachers and parents for the learners.
Thank you, Miss RHEJEN. And now, let me introduce to you myself. I am JENNYBELLE RAVARRA, the next presenter for today. Let's now proceed to the next activity, which is create. And this is the learning environment we designed for our students. Getting to know our pupils was the first thing we considered in making this design. We believe that students learn best when they feel welcome by having this classroom environment that is really conducive to learning. Also, it allows them to express their emotions and freely share their thoughts and ideas without feeling hesitant. We also make sure that there is an adequate lighting inside the room. Things are organized and tables are well arranged. It promotes a comfortable learning environment where everyone can focus and learn effectively. Making a classroom that is colorful and creative is also important. It sets the mood of every student the whole day at school. It improves their ability to focus and reduces their anxiety and stress. This activity deepens our understanding that teachers have a big role in making an effective learning environment that has a great impact in learning outcomes. And for the next activity, we have reflection. This activity deepens our understanding that classroom rules and procedures are very important in ensuring safe, discipline, and order in class. We can achieve that when there is no bullying. That is nothing new but is still prevalent even in online. When everyone feels respected, comfortable, and valued. When everyone shows honesty at all times. Possessing a good attitude toward others, and having a place full of responsible students. We also learn that rewards and consequences must strictly implemented in the classroom in order to motivate or inflict a punishment that will discipline the children. And to effectively maximize the effectiveness of classroom management, the first thing we need to do is to model the things we want to implement in our classroom. Second is to make sure that students always consider and apply classroom rules. Third, there should also have cooperation between students and the teacher. And lastly is to have a good communication with each other. The biggest challenge we encountered throughout this activity is to find a teacher or advisor to interview. We all know that they have hectic schedule, but we are also not sure if they will respond to our request. Luckily, Ma'am Lovelyn Ribados saw our message and agreed to interview her in her free time. The challenge like this teach us to wait patiently, to be responsible, and to have unity as a group. Indeed, teamwork really makes the dream work. We completed our task efficiently and also we passed it on time. And this is our documentation during the interview with Ma'am Lovelyn Ribados, a teacher at Colegio San Jose de Alaminos.
Now let us have the last activity to be presented, which is activity 4, writing my first lesson plan. The intended learning outcomes in this activity is that at the end of this learning activity, the FS students should be able to describe the different parts of a lesson plan using a specified model, construct a lesson plan aligned to his or her specialization using the basic education curriculum, revise a lesson based on the comments or suggestions given by the mentor or instructor, cite challenges encountered in writing lesson plans, and reflect on the feedback received for the improvement of teaching practice. On the observation part of this activity, we have Draw Me Out Part 1 and Part 2. On the Draw Me Out Part 1, we have requested a 2 different lesson plan from a DepEd teacher named Mrs. Lailani Artadena, who is currently teaching grade 1 students in Polo Elementary School. On the first question, what do you observe about the format of the lesson plan presented to you? We, the FS students, observed that the format of the lesson plans presented to us were written in a semi-detailed lesson plan, which is in the subject English and Filipino. Now let us proceed on the second instruction. Describe the parts of each lesson plan model. So both of the lesson plan follows the DepEd format of a lesson plan, wherein it contains the 5 major parts of a lesson plan, which is the objective, subject matter, learning procedure, evaluation, and assignment. Let us first have the lesson plan in Filipino 1. So the objectives in this lesson plan is seen through the whole lesson and taken from the curriculum guide. The subject matter contains the topic of the lesson, references, and the materials that will be used. On the learning procedure, it has 4 subparts: the motivation, wherein the students will sing a song; the discussion, wherein the teacher will show pictures and the students will identify the sounds of the pictures. Now, for the application of the lesson, the teacher will give a group work to the students. And on the last subpart, which is the generalization, the teacher will give the summary of the lesson. On the evaluation part in this lesson plan, the teacher uses a matching type of test to assess the students' learning. While on the assignment part, the teacher lets the students to identify the sounds presented. On the second lesson plan, which is in English 1, on the objectives, it is seen throughout the lesson and taken from the curriculum guide. In the subject matter, it contains the topic of the lesson, the references, and the materials that will be used. In the learning procedure, it has 5 subparts. First, activating prior knowledge, wherein the teacher let the students to sing a song, ask them to arrange 3 picture sequence, and unlock difficulty words by showing pictures. Second, on the presentation and modeling part, the teacher reads a story. On the comprehension check, teacher will give follow-up questions regarding the story read. And on the guided practice, it contains the activity that let the students to do, which is guided by the teacher. In the independent practice, the teacher gives the student an activity to be done by them independently. On the evaluation part of the lesson plan in English 1, the teacher provides an activity that will assess the student's learning. While lastly, on the assignment, here the teacher provides an assignment which will feature the creativity of the students. On the third question in this activity, we have what is common to all these lesson plans. First, both of the lesson plans were written in a semi-detailed format. Second, both lesson plan provided the 5 major parts of a lesson plan. Lastly, both lesson plans use the same teaching method incorporated in the lesson. Last question in this Draw Me Out Part 1, we have what are the major parts of the lesson plan? First, we have objectives, wherein it contains the learning goals of the lesson. Second, subject matter, which contains the topic of the lesson, references, and instructional materials that will be used. Third, learning procedure, wherein it is the step-by-step process of delivering the lesson. Fourth, the evaluation, wherein it consists of activities related from the lesson. Lastly, we have assignment, wherein this is where a teacher can give an assignment about the lesson or for the next lesson. Now let us proceed to the second part of Draw Me Out. Here, we requested a lesson plan from a DepEd teacher, wherein the subject is English 1. The lesson plan was written in a semi-detailed format. It contains the 5 major parts of a lesson plan, wherein it is the objective, subject matter, learning procedure, evaluation, and assignment. On the objectives, it is seen throughout the lesson and taken from the curriculum guide. In the subject matter, it contains the topic of the lesson, the references, and the materials that will be used. In the learning procedure, it has 5 subparts. First, activating prior knowledge, wherein the teacher let the students to sing a song, ask them to arrange 3 picture sequence, and unlock difficulty words by showing pictures. Second, on the presentation and modeling part, the teacher reads a story. On the comprehension check, teacher will give follow-up questions regarding the story read. And on the guided practice, it contains the activity that let the students to do, which is guided by the teacher. In the independent practice, the teacher gives the student an activity to be done by them independently. On the evaluation part of the lesson plan in English 1, the teacher provides an activity that will assess the student's learning. While lastly, on the assignment, here the teacher provides an assignment which will feature the creativity of the students.
In this part of an activity, we answered about what part of lesson plan do we think is easy and difficult to construct. So for us, the part of the lesson plan that is easy to construct is the motivation. It is because there are so many ways to use and do to get the attention of the students before the discussions of the lesson. You can watch or adapt it from YouTube or search from Google some various games or activities that may align with the topic you will be teaching. In this part, you need to be creative in providing motivation to your students, and you can also be applied this to your topic so that you can easily get their attention. While the part of the lesson plan that we had a hard time to construct is the objective. It is where the lesson you will be based. You must first identify the lesson's learning objectives before you can begin planning your lesson. An objective explains what the learner will know or be able to do after the learning experiences, rather than stating what the learner will be exposed during the class. The objective is your guide in teaching your lesson properly. And the motivation, lesson proper, activities, evaluation, and assignment used in a lesson plan are determined and must be aligned with the lesson objectives. Another reason why it is difficult is you need to be smart. When making your objectives, you need to identify and define what your students will learn in your lessons, and of course, how you give an indication of how you will assess the learning of your students. Therefore, before making a lesson plan in creating an effective objectives, you must take time, give your effort, and think critically.
And for the next activity, we have Create. We construct our own detailed lesson plan using the DepEd format as indicated in the DepEd Order 42 series of 2016, incorporating the 7E model, which are elicit, engage, explore, explain, elaborate, evaluate, and extend. This detailed lesson plan is for grade 6 students in science subject with the topic vertebrates and invertebrates. The digital resources and materials used for the intended learners are PowerPoint presentation, a speaker, laptop, projector, and printed materials for sad face and happy face emoji.
For the next part of this activity is we construct a 20-item quiz with the TOS or the table of specification that considered the listed competencies in our learning plan. We classified our table of specification based from Bloom taxonomy. We also include the listed competencies from our lesson plan. After the TOS, we created a 20-item quiz that is aligned in our table of specification.
Now, let us go to the last part of the activity 4 entitled Writing My First Lesson Plan. Let me read to you the question and reflection. What challenges did you encounter in writing your lesson plan, and how will you address these challenges? And our answer is that in creating our lesson plan, we cannot deny that there are some parts that we find challenging, like thinking about the motivation that we will be connected to the topic, making of objectives because we should make sure that the objectives that we will be writing can meet the most essential learning competencies that is provided by the DepEd. And lastly, assessment. For us FE students, for the reason that we should think of an authentic assessment that will measure the learning of the learners during the discussion and if they have learned or not in that time. We address those 3 challenges by looking for the different credible resources in the internet or in the library that we can use in making those parts of the lesson plan that we find difficult in creating. We ask our teachers and they give us tips on making it easier. And lastly is to look for the CG or the curriculum guide that we will base our lesson plan in creating the objectives. Creating lesson plan is quite challenging, but it makes the discussion easier to the teachers. While doing this certain activity, we cannot deny that we can face problems and challenges, but at the same time, we will have lessons. We will be learning about those problems and challenges. Now, our first problem is that where will we be going to find a teacher that will give to us her lesson plan? And how to do lesson plan that has 7 E's and based on the DepEd Order number 42 series of 2016. Doing the quiz and creating the table of specification. But luckily enough, Mrs. Tadena, a DepEd teacher, is generous and kind enough that she gave to us her sample lesson plan and given ample time to check our output. This activity entitled Writing My First Lesson Plan helped us to be more knowledgeable when it comes to lesson planning and that the format of the Department of Education that the teacher is using right now. We also have a background to the do's and don'ts of the things that we will be doing and lesson planning.
And here is our documentation or our evidences during the activity. That ends our presentation, and remember, education is not feeling of a pill, but a lightning of fire.